Ready! In front of me, I've got some of the rarest and coolest pieces for a KSK kit. That's right, on the Gear.Locker, we're talking about breaching. When anybody thinks of special forces, odds are this is what they envision. Going in the dead of night, blasting open a door, taking down armed guards, and capturing that warlord leader. And while this may be fantastical movie stuff, as we know very recently, stuff like this happens. And I think the KSK have some of the coolest breacher stuff around. So we're gonna work through a ton of the breacher related equipment that I've collected over years. And some of it is insanely hard to find. I don't even know what to start with. And let's kick this whole thing off with a bang, starting with the shotguns. Now this is an airsoft replica shotgun. No, I'm not gonna be showing any real guns off on the channel anytime soon. So YouTube, cool your jets. But this is the 870 MCS style shotgun, one used in the Bundeswehr in many units and the KSK as well. They can be seen with certain modifications, such as slightly longer barrels, different muzzles, and extended tubes. But this is a bare bones basic example of it. And how they'd attach it to their kit has a couple different variations. In some cases, you can see something as simple as OD green bungee cord. Get a carabiner on the end of it, clip it to your rig somehow, and you're good. In fact, this is the exact setup that was used in the breacher training kit that I did not too long ago. If you haven't already seen that video and want to get into some breacher KSK stuff, definitely check that one out. But another option that was used was this Linderhof Tactic sling piece right here. This is a modular sling piece that attached with MOLLE, whether it's on the back through the shoulder pads or somewhere else on the carrier, an ITW Nexus buckle, and an HK style clip. This, while it could be used to hold rifles, and I have seen an example where that is plausible, this was also used to hold the shotguns. Now, you don't want this thing just dangling on your kit though. You're gonna need something to hook it to the side. And if we start with the old school, you've got pieces like these. These may look very familiar, and in fact, you'll find with some of this stuff, Linderhof copies other designs from other companies. These look extremely similar to the Eagle Industries or Tactical Assault Gear rifle holders. These go on the belt or a cummerbund and allow you to stow your rifle away while you're doing something else. Basically gives you a hands-free option. And these are a couple examples made by Linderhof Tactic. You have ones that are in this coyote brown, but Linderhof did produce in their own special tan, this version right here. While it is a little bit hard to see in reference photos whether it was coyote or tan, I tend to stick with a tan because not only is it a little bit cooler, but odds are it's what they used. And you'll see some other cool tan pieces later on. But if you want to go even more modern, you do have another option to retain your weapons on the side. And that is something like this. This is a bungee cable with two clips on the side to attach it to the side of your plate carrier. These will hold even your normal rifles tight to you and not dangling all over the place. So this, while the buckles are on another carrier back there, is another option, albeit a little more modern. And keeping on with the bangs, let's talk about some explosives. Now, everything seen in this video is either dummy, I made it myself, or what's the word? Not disengaged. Deactivated. Just like these DM109 flashbangs here. These look very similar to some modern generic flashbangs, but made for the Bundeswehr, the DM109s are pretty cool pieces. You'll see them with some time labels on top to tell you how long you got. But these are fairly hefty pieces, and of course, some of the coolest. But let's say that you haven't even gotten into the room yet. This is where something like this comes in. For the KSK and many other tier 1 units around the world, charges aren't just straight off the shelf. They're often custom built for the objective that they're going to be hitting. And you'll find them in the 2015, 2017, and even beyond in these charge pouches here. Now in mine, I have a filler of just a standard style charge, but this is a very slim pouch that is often seen on the rear of the plate carrier. It comes in many colors, but is commonly seen issued in the Gen 5 sets with this 3-farb and Tarndruck or the standard 5-farb Flecktar. And these are relatively limited. Again, what they carry is those style charges. But if you kick it back a little bit earlier, and I mean, it's even seen at the same time with those, is one of the rarest pieces I've ever held. This is a KSK issued Linderhof Tactic charge pouch. This is by far one of the biggest grail pieces that I have in my collection, close to the next one we'll check out. But this piece holds breaching charges and whatever other pieces of equipment you may need. It has a removable top flap where we can see our tag, and this one is in impeccable condition, dated 2011. Funny story how I got this, I posted a want to buy on my Instagram, and a scout of Germany reached out to me and he said, hey, I've been using one of these on my pack to hold a water bottle. You want to buy it? I could not have said yes faster. But what's cool about it is not only did it come with the top flap, but also an internal organization pocket. This is a wrap that was used to hold and contain whatever charges were being used. And my goodness, do I just absolutely love this thing. What's interesting about pieces like these is I don't believe these were ever sold commercially, hence why they're so rare on the secondhand market. But these also don't have any issuing numbers. If you're a Bundeswehr collector, especially in modern times, you know that every piece has an issued number. These ones, I believe, were custom ordered from Linderhof Tactic and issued to the KSK in multitude. Because not only were these not produced in Flecktarn, to my knowledge, but they were only ever seen with that unit. If you do know another unit that did use these in particular, let me know in the comments below. But this is a cousin piece to another extremely rare piece that I believe there are less than 10 of in private collectors' hands around the world. And that is the Linderhof Tactic tool pouch. This, as you can see, is the exact same color, that beautiful Linderhof Tactic gold. And just like this one, doesn't have any issued numbers on it. However, this was seen with the KSK in a couple different eras. This holds your breacher tools, which we'll get to in a second. You have a stiff plastic top, bungee retention, and molly going down the bottom, as well as a hard flap to help keep things together. Now the tag on this one is all the way down here on the bottom, and mine is dated 2010. This is very similar to other designs you'll see, and in fact I have seen this exact style of pouch used well beyond the early 2010s. This can be seen with German police units in their Steingrau Olive, and even in Multitarn too. And what goes in this beauty is none other than the Rultech Alti Huli. Now granted, you can technically put whatever breacher tool you want in there, but this was one used by the KSK a ton. And also the old version with the flat pry bar. The curved pry bar is of course kosher for that 2014 after time period, but this one is good for all eras. And what's cool about it is not only does it have this compact form, but it extends. Boy, is this heavy. Especially on the back of a rucksack. You do not want to be carrying this a long way. But one thing that I did to it was I added an IR chem light and some breacher tape. Now, whether or not this was done with the KSK, I'm not sure. However, I do know breachers of various US forces do use this technique to keep track of their tools if they drop them. Because you're not going to be re-indexing this piece, you're likely just going to leave it and pick it up on the way out. So having something that'll allow you to see it a little more brightly is probably what you're going to want to have. Sort of a unit SOP thing that, again, while I'm not sure if it was used by the KSK, is something I've added here. And before we move any further to some of the rarest items here, let's quickly talk about the two things I just mentioned. Number one, chem lights. When you breach a room, odds are you're going to want to mark it clear. So you'll see a lot of KSK operators have these chem lights hanging on their kit. Sometimes they're very organized and in radio pouches or in dedicated pouches, but other times you'll see them hanging in clumps like this. I don't particularly love having them like this, but it works. It makes them quick, easy access, but definitely exposed, and if one accidentally cracks, kind of glowing. But what's a little more subtle is this tape right here. This is a roll of Panzer tape. Made for the Bundeswehr, this tape is incredibly strong. And in some of the old school photographs, you'll see breachers with this tape lining their helmets for quick access. And a cool thing, when I bought this sling right here, there was just a little bit of this holding on the end. So whatever this is in use for breachers, it is a handy thing to have. You'll be hard pressed to find any special forces breacher without some tape somewhere on their kit. Okay, and now let's get to a couple of the really cool pieces. One is something that you've seen on this channel a couple times before, especially if you watched that breacher video. But this is a breacher hood. This is part of the Einsatzkombi, a full head-to-toe suit that is made for heavier use. Definitely an early 2000s style design, and it hasn't seen much use afterwards as far as I know. But what did last is the breacher hoods. These were typically fixed to the rear collar of the wearer and worn over the head and typically under the helmet to prevent any glass or debris from falling into the shirt of the wearer. As you can see, this zips onto the Einsatzkombi, but with a little bit of Velcro, you can make it fit almost any shirt you want. And this is an incredibly rare piece, mainly because they weren't sold or made independently, but instead came with a piece that is kind of rare and expensive nowadays. So this is just a small detail that adds quite a bit of intention to the kit. And I think I've exhausted the breacher stuff, and it's time to talk about assaulting. There are a series of bags made by Linderhof Tactic that are copies of US designs, minor modifications of other designs, but all made in a cool Linderhof tan. There's a breacher bag, which, by the way, if you ever get your hands on one and are looking to sell it, I will buy one from you. Please just name your price. But this is another piece that was used by a KSK operator. And this might look familiar, like a tag combat sustainment pack, but instead, this is from the Linderhof Tactic line. And as you can see, it is in that gorgeous gold and retains a lot of the features from the standard tag pack. Like your 3 pockets here, your horizontal pistol or tourniquet pouch, triple mag pouch up top, and a large interior, where you'll see that pretty tag. And how do I know this was used by the KSK? Well, as you can see, there are 3 pieces of tape on each of the pockets with writing that unfortunately has worn off. So I can't tell what was placed in these pockets, but this is made by TISA, and this is their Gewerbeband. which I hope I'm pronouncing that right. It's kind of a funny word to say in English, but it is a tape in a colorway that was only made for the KSK. And you see it pop up a couple times here and there, but it's sort of like a gaffer's tape. Easy to go on, comes off without leaving much residue, and is great for labeling things, which is what the user did here. I paid a pretty penny for this piece, and I am very glad to have it in the collection. In fact, I use this pack a little more than I probably should. But this is fantastic for assaulting, and a reason that the KSK used a piece like it. But if you're interested in doing any more KSK stuff, definitely check out Camperband. We are a KSK reenacting unit in the United States, and getting kit now has never been easier. We have insane connections and places that you can find most of what you need for a base impression, which is why so many of us are branching out into this fun and special stuff. Like, I just can't get over these. So with all that being said, thank you so much for checking out this video. Again, if you enjoy the breacher stuff, check out KVB. This is the Gear Locker, and see you guys in the next one.